So I decided to make today an experiment day for my brother, who, if he were fishing with me, would want to be, instead of fishing one of my creations, my guess is that he would prefer throwing a dry dropper situation with a chubby up top and a beadhead nymph on the bottom. And since that setup is very suitable for a day when the river is in recovery mode, I decided to put this setup, first run through this water where I know there are multiple good-sized fish. I'm gonna go through the run first with this purple chubby, which undoubtedly will show up better on the camera, especially in this lighting condition, because we've got low clouds. Well, that's a pretty good indicator right there. Oh, that's a pretty big fish too. We've got low clouds plus a little bit of muddy in the water. I saw that take, and maybe that one will show up really good on film, but this is a pretty chunky cutthroat that took that. Oh, it took the nymph. Either that, or it came up after the dry and got snagged by the nymph. I believe that's what happened. It is not a giant fish, but it's coming in ass first, which is obviously a pretty good indicator. What I can say for sure is I saw this fish go after the purple chubby, and that happens pretty often actually with this exact scenario. Happens quite a bit with a dry dropper situation. See, the dropper nymph just got him in the side after he made a decision to go after the dry. And as I've said before, I got nothing against these big chubby Chernobyls or any variation thereof, except the fact that I don't tie them. Again, as I've said, one of my favorite aspects of fly fishing has always been the science of it, as far as matching what these fish are feeding on, and that extends to my tying. I like coming up with creations that fake a trout out into believing that he is going after a natural. I do not for a second challenge the effectiveness of this setup that I'm going through here the first time with. Not just the dry dropper, but the giant size of the dry. Ooh, that could produce right there. But yeah, I think the visibility is down by a couple of feet right compared to when I was up here the other day. Ooh, that was a take, but I think it was on the nymph. There we go, out there on that line. But compared to my 2-weight that I fished through here with on my birthday, I feel like I'm fishing a broomstick with my 6-weight, which is not surprising, and it doesn't help that casting these chubbies is a task in and of itself. There's so much wind resistance that you got to be double hauling just to get the fly line to move forward. That's a good line out there. That was a good long drift. All right, moved up a couple of steps, double hauling this thing. A little bit shallower drift this time. But yeah, that wind resistance with all of that yarn is legit. I gotta make the adjustment. Oh, yep, that was a take on the nymph, and I kind of had my head turned. Just a little guy. All right. All right. So for testing purposes, I'm going to hold this fish up like this, and then I'm going to look at the camera for a second. It would not surprise me for a second to see one of these big boys come up and engulf that purple chubby. Otherwise, I wouldn't be fishing it. Now that was a textbook good long drift. That drift right there is one that has produced a lot of fish on salmon flies and golden stones. Same with that one right there. Look at that. Oh man. All right, one more cast and then I'm going back down. I am here a little early today. My cat decided he wanted to play caveman games at 6 o'clock this morning, so hence the early start. All right, so we're back with a freshened up tippet and a salmon fly imitation I tied last night that I'm simply calling the Beast. It's funny, I must have sensed that we were going to have some color in the water because last night I went to my old saltwater tying supplies from Washington and grabbed a big old long number 4 hook, knowing that I was tying it with foam, with a foam body, just to increase the size, because I don't even own any size 4 or size 2 dry fly hooks, because I just don't tie either the chubbies or any of my imitations that big. But it's floating very nicely, and I'll show the camera. The fly, I immediately hooked a small fish on it when I tied it on, but I didn't have the camera running. Ooh, that bird just about nailed me. So the water temperature is up to 53 degrees. I haven't looked at what the temperature outside is, but today the high is in the mid 70s. So we're probably in the 60s right now. So there, oh, fly rod's trying to get away. So that's what it looks like. After the drying beads, but before the solution is applied, or we dunk it in said solution. Homemade, of course. And then what I like to do when it's in this state is I like to make those extra false casts, whoops, to whip the extra solution off of it. Usually count to 10. By then I can be reasonably certain that when it hits the ground, it's going to be on its best float. Just like that. Oh, that's a good, oh, that's a big ass fish. Holy shit. I am going to have to look back at that tape to see that guy, to see if I can pinpoint when he came up and took it. I don't think he felt the hook, because I had no tension on the back, or on the end of my line. But it tells me that some of these guys are parking out there in the faster water for whatever reason. Wow, that was cool to see. Like we always talk about, that's the best part of the whole game, is seeing those guys react to your fly. All right, let's get along the faster edge out here. There we go. Let's see if that guy tries again. He probably saw it, but showed some patience or wisdom in not going after it. So that's the thing. With a fly this big, And knowing the fish are here, I know there's fish seeing it on every single drift. All right, we're getting toward the top of the hole where many successes have occurred. There we go. That looked to be a pretty good fish. Love the take. Oh, he came unbuttoned. All right, so for this pass, I have seen just enough little Cahill colored mayflies, as well as a couple of little golden stones, and just a slight uptick in the number of risers that I tied on the other fly I tied last night, which was my first golden stone of the year. When I was fishing that pattern on my birthday, that was one of last year's holdover flies. This thing is floating so nice, and seeing that it's even dramatically smaller than the salmon fly pattern I had on, it casts like a dream. Well, after I dried the fly, I did not turn on the camera right away, and of course I hooked up while the camera was off. This guy is worthy of getting on the reel. Looks to be a 13-14 incher. Oh, maybe a little longer. That's a beautiful cutthroat. And I love the fact that he took my artwork from last night. He's strong. The cool thing about this particular pattern, as was proven last summer, is that once this hatch really got going, it lasted literally all summer. And I tied a version of this particular fly as a stimulator, you know, with an orange head. And that was a fly that I would go to even during hoppers when it seemed like they weren't especially excited about taking hopper patterns. I would put on one of those little McStimmies and turn around and catch a fish, which is cool. Boy, he is stocky. Holy cow. He probably is 13 inches long, but he is a stocky one. We'll get a look at him once I get my fly out of there, which doesn't seem like it's going to be that easy to do. Take it easy, buddy. Oh, the fly is out. And I will remove it, extract it from the net. It's barbless. Why is it giving me grief? There we go. All right. All right, just give me a break. All right, I can tell you exactly. Oh, Hate it when their little teeth get hooked up in the net. Oh, for crying out loud. Come on. There he goes. Well, we didn't get to look at him, but he was a stocky 14 is what I'm gonna call him, and he took my golden stone, so I appreciate it. Here we go. That was a good drift. Well, all my experimentation last year is definitely paying off, in the sense that the basic construction of this fly, as a very simple one to tie, is floating extremely well. And to me, that's one of those all-important characteristics of a fly. I don't tie to win any contests beauty-wise. I want utility. I want a fly that floats high, that stays dry, that is in the basic, that is easy to tie, and that is within the basic size and color of whatever the trout are keying on it at a given moment. And so those are my qualities in tying. As far as judging, when I get to the river, obviously it's got to prove itself to float real high and take the dressing well. Oh, that was a pretty good fish. Like this one is floating right down here. He's been dressed a while ago, but he's got all the buoyancy in the world. And then of course it needs to catch fish, but specifically when I am in an opportunity, or having an opportunity like this, where you get to see the fish come after it, just like that guy did. I think the mark of a good fly is one that they'll come up and study for a second and still take. Obviously a lot of these drifts are very short. I mean, you're just casting to a window of, between two waves, or on an inside seam, where the whole drift is only going to last, like when I cast at that angle, this drift lasts a long time, but I'm not necessarily happy with the fact that my fly line is not that far from the fly. But I noticed with my salmon fly imitations last year that fish were coming up and giving them a good long look. Sometimes leaving, sometimes taking it right then, but even the ones that left would come right back and smack it. And so that's kind of what I strive for in these patterns. But like I said, they're not necessarily the prettiest to look at. If you were in a fly shop and you saw a section with these, you might kind of look at them and go, whatever. But the fact is, they catch fish and they're durable. I mean, I hate any pattern that you catch one fish and just the process of getting it out of its mouth, getting it out of the net, whatever, and the fly is destroyed. I mean, I love tying, but I don't love tying that much. So I want my flies to be durable, and this foam wing, dubbed body, with an under layer of foam that I add, is really buoyant and dries out really well, with a couple extra false casts. And then from a durability standpoint, I expect to get you know, multiple fish out of it without it breaking down. Every fly eventually gets worn out, but the other thing about it is that I never fall in love with one fly either. I enjoy the tying enough that it's a hobby of its own, and so if a fly works, great, and if I need another one in the box to back it up, I'll tie it. But yeah, so I've said it many times before, the thrill of putting thread and fur, feathers in some cases, to a hook that morning or the night before, and then coming out and seeing it fake out a trout. Oh, that's a good fish. Oh my gosh, I hope I was looking. That's a really good fish. Right as I said, fake out. So this fly clearly faked this guy out. Ooh, catch up. There we go, we're caught up. Oh yeah, that's a nice trout. But clearly this guy didn't want my salmon fly imitation for, you know, he must have seen it a dozen times. And then I made the switch over to this fly, which I'm trying to imitate the little golden stones that now have started hatching. And that's what he was looking for. I'm gonna move him downstream a little bit to a better landing spot. Again, our cutthroat here are kind of, in most cases, a little bit football-y, shaped like a football. Not super long, but boy are they stocky. All right, it's time, brother. Or is it? See that? Look at how thick this guy is. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And that's where he's got all his strength. All right, I'll let you play. Oh man, this guy is the absolute example of what I was just talking about their football shape. All right, let's get this guy under control, and then we can get the fly out. All right in that corner of the mouth. Look at how stocky that guy is and how fat his belly is. That is incredible. And there he goes, all healthy like.